Welcome to Decoded by Christina / Coffee with Christina. In case you missed part 1, let me explain what this is again. If you want to skip straight to the questions, check out the timestamps in the video description. People often ask me for advice about getting into tech and freelancing. So my plan was to do semi-regular live streams called Coffee with Christina, where we could all have a coffee date together and I could answer a bunch of questions. I only ended up doing 2 before other work and life stuff took over, but I found these old live streams and realized that people are still asking the same questions. So I'm re-uploading them. This live stream was recorded back in 2016 when streaming software wasn't as good, so the video was distorted. I removed it, but the audio is still available and the content is still relevant. Also, the questions in this video are all about freelancing. If you want to know more about non-freelancing stuff, check out part 1.
Thanks for having everybody on a Saturday afternoon. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. So I'm just going to give you a very quick intro, a little bit about my background, just so that you know what my experience is, and maybe that'll help you decide what kind of questions you want to ask. I've been working in the tech industry mainly as a front-end developer for about 10 years. I've worked at a couple different digital agencies, software company, and mutual funds. I worked at a nonprofit organization doing curriculum, and I've also taught at colleges and boot camp. And throughout the years, especially when I was working at the agencies and stuff, I did a lot of freelancing on the side as well. So I have experience doing it part-time, and recently I've been doing freelance completely full-time. So we can talk a little bit about transitioning from part-time to full-time. That's kind of me in a nutshell. So today we're focusing specifically just on any questions related with freelancing, just so that we can keep the focus on one topic. Say hello, let me know where you are calling in from, and let's just get started. Okay, I'm going to go with question number 1. How do I balance freelancing with a full-time job? This is something that a lot of people start off with because oftentimes when you first start freelancing, you don't have enough clients or work to sustain a full-time salary yet. So the thing about balancing freelancing with full-time is obviously it could get a little bit tiring because, 8 hours a day at work, and then you come home and you have to work again. So if this is something that you plan on doing, be prepared that it's going to obviously take up a little more of your time than normal, and expect late night. So for me, I found that the best way to balance it was to let my clients know that I also have a full-time job. That way, they're not expecting me to answer emails in the middle of the day, or they're not trying to call. You're sort of just setting up that expectation with them that during 9 to 5 or whenever your full-time job is, that they should expect that you will be unavailable. And plus, that takes a little bit of pressure off of you so that you're not worrying about your part-time freelancing clients while you're at your job. And you don't want to take away from your job by sneaking away to answer emails or make phone calls and stuff. So just tell them right off the bat at the beginning that I would love to work with you on this project. I do work full time, so this is something I'll be working on in the evenings and weekends. So if you need to get in touch with me, I'll be available during these hours. And then that way, everyone kind of knows the deal when they're coming into the project together. And then segmenting your time will also give you a bit more peace of mind. And also, some employers, you might want to check with them to see if it's actually okay if you're working on freelance projects, because sometimes there might be a conflict of interest. So that is definitely something you probably want to check with your employers as well. A place that I worked at, it was a digital agency. That was something that they explicitly told us that they would want us to check in with them first, just to make sure there wasn't any conflict of interest. And also make sure you quote a longer timeline, because you won't be able to work on this full time. So something that would normally take you 2 weeks, for example, I would quote them at least double the time. And then that way you're not killing yourself at your day job and then coming home and trying to bump out another 8 hours or so. Let your clients know, talk to your employer if you have to, segment your time, and make sure to carve out a little bit of time so that you get a little bit of a break for yourself as well. I should probably take my own advice because I didn't always do that, but you definitely don't want to burn out. Okay, so the next question, what should my hourly rate be? So this is a question that I get all the time from clients and students and other freelancers. This is something that's just a really difficult question to answer. You Google this and you'll find a million articles. The thing that's difficult about this is there's really no precedent, and you can literally charge whatever you want. It's just trying to find a balance between charging enough that you will be able to sustain your lifestyle. And also, you have to think of this as you are putting value on your time. And the thing about freelancing is you have to charge a lot more an hour than you would normally expect. So a lot of people, when they're starting out with freelancing, which I definitely did too, we have this idea that if you say, I want to make X amount of dollars a year, I'm going to divide that by 52 weeks, divided by 40 hours a week, and that's my hourly wage. But you can't do that because if you're working a full-time job and you're on a salary, you always get paid 40 hours a week no matter what. So whether you have work or not, you get paid. When you go on your lunch break, you get paid. When you take 20 minutes to go get a coffee and maybe chat with a coworker, you get paid. And that doesn't happen when you are a freelancer. You only get paid on billable work. And so there are some days you might only have maybe 2 hours of billable work. You may only have six. When you think about your full-time job, even if you're in the office for 40 hours a week, it's rare that you're actually working 8 hours a day because you come in and maybe you're getting your coffee, you're turning on your computer, you're saying hello to people, and then you have your hour lunch break, maybe a mid-morning break, maybe an afternoon break, and just these little things that happen through the day that as a freelancer you wouldn't get paid for. So that is the main reason why you definitely need to charge more than what an hourly salary is. When you're starting out, most of the time it's easiest to start with an hourly rate just because we're in the habit of thinking this is going to take X amount of hours. And so that'll help give you a guideline at the beginning to see what you should charge in terms of hours. So then how do you calculate the hourly rate if you can't charge a regular salary? Most of the time, it's probably going to be 2 times as much as your salary. So if you're, I don't have the math right now, but let's say you make, I don't know, $60,000 a year. I'm not sure what that works out to an hourly, but let's say that works out to $25 an hour. Most likely you're going to have to charge at least 50 for it to actually count. Think of it this way. When you get a quote and you're breaking down the project, so let's say the person wants a website, they want a photo gallery, it be responsive and work on mobile phones, break those down into steps, and then try to figure out approximately how many hours it'll take for you to do this part. If you think you're going to take about 10 hours to do something, add on at least a third to half because it always takes longer than you expect. And in the rare times it actually doesn't, you'll probably end up needing those extra hours somewhere else anyway. So it all works out in the end. So let's say you think something's going to take you 10 hours, actually give yourself at least 12 to 15. Do that for every little portion of the project. And then at the end of the project, kind of play around with the numbers. I would say don't go any lower than $40 an hour. And that's still pretty low, even if you're just finished school, even if you don't have that much experience yet. Because again, like I was saying, you can work on something all day and actually only have 4 hours of billable time because you might have to be sending emails. You might have to be putting together your quote. You have to put together the proposal, maybe get on a call with them, all those things you don't get paid for. So definitely make your hourly, I would say minimum 40 to 65 to start. And then when you take that hourly wage, times it by the number of hours it'll take to do your project, you kind of get a general idea of how much each portion will cost. So if milestone 1 is going to take me 10 hours to do, 10 times 60, that's $600. If I had estimated it to be X amount of hours and it came to 630 or something like that, sometimes I'll even just round it up to 650 just to kind of just give these concrete numbers. I don't generally like to tell the clients what the hourly rate is. I rather just quote on the entire project because I find that if I tell them the hourly rate, they get so focused on that one number and they have this idea of like, what, you are charging X amount of dollars an hour, and they don't really understand that that hour is more than just that hour. It also takes into account years of experience, you going to conferences and meetups, you're taking time out of your day to watch video tutorials, you're coming to webinars like this. So you're spending a lot of time to continue to learn more. I mean, if they ask, then you can tell them that your hourly is based on this, but this is more of a project total. I will give them an hourly for sort of one-off things. Like it might be, okay, if you want things that are outside of the quote, then my rate will be X amount of dollars an hour. Okay, that was sort of just a very high level general overview about hourly rate. Let's see what the next question is. Should I go freelance or should I get a full-time job first? This is a very personal choice. I think that there's pros and cons to going freelance full-time right away or getting a full-time job first or staying in a full-time job for a few years. So I personally went the route of working full-time for quite a few years. I'd say 6 years I had a pretty standard sort of 9 to 5 job. And then the last few years, it's been a little bit different. The good thing about getting sort of your standard 9 to 5 job is you don't have to worry about all of those little extra things like the overhead, like office space, equipment, marketing, all those things. So you can just sort of concentrate on getting better and getting experience. And then you also have the benefit of having senior people around you. So you can learn from working with people who have had more experience than you, and you can learn from them. And also, when you're working at an agency or a software company or something, you sort of just have to work on the projects that you're given. So you can be challenged that way in the sense that you just have to do it. When you're a freelancer, you can, in theory, pick and choose your projects a little bit more. So maybe you might be inclined to pick projects that you feel more comfortable with, and so you don't challenge yourself. And so in that case, it might be good to start with a full-time job first, where you're sort of just assigned different projects, and then you just work through whatever challenges that come your way. But I guess the flip side is you don't always get to work on the things you want to work on. So if you're freelancing part-time just because you sort of need a little extra money, that's one thing. But if you're freelancing part-time because you're not getting the work that you want to do in your day job, I would say to pick projects that are different from your day job, or else it'll just feel like one big long day. So yeah, the pros is regular paycheck, being around people that are more experienced. The cons are you may not always get to work on what you want. For me, I hate going into the office 9 to 5. I like being at home. I like having a flexible schedule. So for me, I'm enjoying being freelancing full time. Even though I probably end up working more hours now, I like having the flexibility. But don't confuse flexibility with less hours. It just means that you can start and end whenever you want, which is also kind of hard too, because when you're freelancing full time, there's really no end time. So you have to be much more strict on yourself to decide when you are off work. So I have a little designated spot where I work, and occasionally I'll work on the couch or in the bedroom, but very rarely. I try to just keep to my desk area. If you do start freelancing right away, I think the good thing about that is you're not as worried about how much money you make. And what I mean is, after working 10 years, I'm used to being able to, or I know that I'm able to earn a certain salary. So to switch full time after that and make way less than what I could if I was in a standard full time job is something that's sort of always in the back of my mind, because it's such a discrepancy right now. But I also know that I need patience to build this up. But if you start freelancing full time, I mean, you haven't really built that up yet. So you kind of get used to whatever you make. And then at the beginning, you learn how to just do these things on your own. You sort of learn what you want to do, and you don't get comfortable. What happens is a lot of people go freelancing full time. They want to be entrepreneurs, but then they get comfortable in a time job and having all the perks of just, regular paychecks, such regular work. That's hard for them to leave after that, even if they want to, just because it's hard to leave things that you've already become comfortable with. So those are the pros and cons. Okay, how do I get clients? So this is also a question I hear a lot. So where do you actually find these clients? And for me, it's always been mostly word of mouth. So I would say, in terms of just trying to land those first few clients, Tell everybody. Everybody has to know what you're working on. So make sure you have it on any of your social media accounts, put it in your bio, looking available for hire. Need a freelancer? Email me. People don't know unless you tell them. So if you go to Meetup or any sort of social events and you're just talking to someone, you could just say, hey, I'm starting freelancing. So if you know of anybody who's looking, here's my contact information. So you just have to get yourself out there. And then once you land those first few and you do a good job, they'll tell their friends, who will tell their friends, and then you'll start to get more work. Or maybe your clients will just come back to you in a year or two and they'll need more work. And so it'll build on after that. Make sure you have a portfolio up. Make sure you have a way for people to find you somehow. You should have a LinkedIn account. You should have a personal website, social media, all those things. And that way people can find you. I've tried to go to these different job boards and such. And what I find is that most of the time, for some reason, people who post freelancing jobs on these job boards, especially things like a Craigslist, they tend to be really cheap for some reason. They're just clients that you don't want. So one of the things that is really hard to do as a freelancer when you're just concerned about making sure you're making money is knowing when to turn down clients. So I know it's hard, especially if you need the money, but if you keep taking on bad clients or cheap clients, then now the problem is you're spending all this time working on projects where the client doesn't pay you what they should. And then that time could be spent working for somebody else. So you want to try to get the kinds of people that you want to work with right away so that you're not building a client base on people that don't understand the industry and don't understand the value of your time. Sometimes people will just email me out of the blue as well. You can usually tell by the way people email you if this is a client that you're going to want to take on. If they email you and they don't give you a lot of information, for me, that's also something that is a red flag. If they just send you an email and say, I want a website, how much will this cost? That doesn't give you any information. And to me, that's an indicator of what communicating with this person will be like going forward. So those red flags, I usually try to stay away from that. Or if they don't seem to know what they want, I find that the best client inquiries are the ones that say, hi, my name is so-and-so. This is the company that I run. This is what we're looking for. I looked at your portfolio. I like your work. Here's a couple details about what we need. If you're available, let's set up a call. Something like that. They are introducing themselves. They're letting you know what they want. They're letting you know why they got in contact with you. And they seem like they might be easy to communicate with. A lot of times you're going to be doing a lot of communicating over email. So you want to make sure it's someone that can express themselves and communicate through print. There will be clients that will want to talk on the phone, but the majority of the communication has to be through email. So you want to make sure it's someone that you can communicate clearly with right at the beginning. Kind of back to, I guess, the quote question as well. Unless it's a really, really small project, I probably wouldn't work for anything under 2000, and that's still a small budget for even just a basic website. I did a quote with some of my college students, and we came up with $4,000 for a pretty basic website. Just sort of your typical informational website and maybe a photo gallery and like a contact form. And at first, most of the students were like, wow, that's so much. But then when we broke it down into smaller steps and thinking about how long it would actually take, 4,000 seems to be a pretty good baseline to start off for sort of your basic website. So if you see people who email you or on the job posting, it'll say something like, they want a full-scale website, the budget is $400, just don't even bother. It's not worth the time. If you're trying to get experience and you're not able to find people who could pay properly, you're probably better off volunteering for like a nonprofit organization or something, or even doing something as a favor for a friend or family member, though that can be hard too. I'll talk about that in a second, working for friends and family members. But if you just need the experience, you might be better off helping out some kind of like nonprofit agency, a friend, or just doing a pet project. Most of the time, people just want to see your work. It doesn't have to be a paying client's work. It could just be a hobby project, something that just shows what you can build. So you can even just build up your portfolio that way by just working on a bunch of hobby projects. And so the hardest part is getting those first clients, but once you get some good ones, they tell their friends, you have more work, and then word kind of spreads that way. So try to be as picky as you can at the beginning and not just taking on clients just for the money. It'll build on after that. Okay, what is this one? So actually, this kind of goes into what I was just talking about. How do I show my skills and market myself if I have no experience or a little bit of experience? So that's sort of what I mentioned already, where even if you don't have any actual projects or you have just a little bit of work experience, that's okay. Because again, your website is your portfolio itself. So people often think, oh no, I don't have anything to put into my portfolio. What should I do? But the website itself is already your portfolio. So just make sure that your website, even if it's just a hi, this is about me, this is what I do, make sure that looks good, even if there's actually no portfolio section. Maybe you can even have a blog section, or I like to write on medium.com just because I don't blog often to have an actual blog section. So I'll write some things and then I'll just post it to my website. I have a writing area and then I'll just post an excerpt there and a link to Medium. And that way, if you write about things, even if you don't have a lot of projects to show, by writing about it, it shows that you have some knowledge in the area. So that could be something. If you're not really into writing, there's also little projects and stuff that you can do on something like CodePen, codepen.io, if you haven't seen it already. There's lots of other sites like that, but I think that's one of the more popular ones. But those ones are where you can just sort of post these little smaller projects, and that's where you can kind of get creative and do a little bit more fun stuff that you might not do on a client site. So those are little things that you can add, these little experiments and stuff, just to show what kind of work you can do or what you're capable of, your creativity, your experience with different programming languages. So that's something you could do as well. How do you market yourself? So this is something that I'm always working on as well. So this is the part where why it's important to charge higher than you expect it to be for your hourly rate, because you're going to be spending a lot of time marketing yourself and you don't get paid for that, but it's something that you have to do. The things I do in terms of marketing myself is I'm fairly active on Twitter. And so I use Twitter for different things. Technically, I guess you can say I'm marketing myself, but I also use Twitter as a way to, I guess, show my personality as well. So I actually don't tweet about code and stuff that often. Maybe, I don't know, 25% of the time. The rest is just a lot of personal stuff. But I think that's sort of my way of just showing my personality. One of the great things of being a freelancer is that you get to choose what clients you want to take on. And so in a way, you're sort of choosing people that maybe you relate to more on different levels, and then you can build a relationship with your clients. So it's good to show your personality in your marketing. I recently joined Facebook. I know that's probably weird that I just joined Facebook in 2016, but I made a Facebook page just as a way, again, another way to reach people. I post projects and stuff there as well. What else do I do? I do stuff like this. Another thing that I like to do, which I find helps in terms of sort of the marketing stuff, is I speak at meetups and events. So I know that for some folks might not want to speak at events just yet, but if you don't feel comfortable speaking at events, at least just go to them. Find a couple here and there, see which ones you like, and that way you can also sort of just get to meet people. And sometimes you end up meeting other freelancers and stuff and not necessarily clients, but it's good to have a support base and you guys can share resources and stuff. Now, in terms of speaking, the reason why I prefer to speak rather than just attend is sometimes it can be, especially if you go by yourself, sometimes it can be a little bit awkward going to a meetup and you might not know anybody, so you might not know who to talk to. You may be feeling shy or you don't really know what to say. But I find that as a speaker, people come to talk to you. And so that helps with sort of the navigating socially. For me, it definitely feels less awkward because I'm not searching for conversations or feeling like, oh, no, I don't know anybody here. I don't know who to talk to. But as the speaker, people will come to me and they want to talk about whatever it is that I talked about. And then the conversation flows a little bit more naturally. And then, of course, being the speaker as well helps to get you out there. And if you ever feel like, I don't know what to speak about, or if you feel like you don't have enough knowledge about something, it's totally not true. A lot of meetups will even mentor new speakers as well. So, whatever events you might want to talk to, you can always get in touch with the organizer and see if they have any sort of help or extra mentorship for new speakers. Everyone was new at one point, so if it's something you want to do, you got to try it at least once and see how it goes. There are a lot of meetups where there's a lot shorter talks as well, so that's a little less daunting for your first time. So if you can just get like a lightning talk that's maybe 10 or 15 minutes, that makes it a little bit easier for your first time. Okay, and that's pretty much it for that question. So I don't have any questions left. Let me see if I can think of something that people tend to ask me all the time. Of course, now I can't remember now that I'm on the spot. Oh, here's something. Invoicing. You probably want to use some kind of professional invoicing software just to make you look like more of a professional as well. You want to use something easy so that you're not spending your time making a Word doc or a spreadsheet every single time you need to send out an invoice. So when I started out, I liked FreshBooks.com. That was a really simple interface, easy to use. So I used it for a couple years. The last couple years, I switched over to Wave app. And that's just because they have integrated accounting into it. So it was recommended by my accountant. So with Wave apps, you can pull in your bank data and stuff. So it just makes it a little bit easier to calculate your expenses and then also have your invoicing all in the same app. And you can also record payments. You can add credit card payments and stuff. So being able to use some kind of software where you can offer different payments to your clients as well is also really handy. So I try to avoid credit card payments just because then you have to pay a fee for using that. But for larger contracts, I feel like I should offer that just because it makes it easier for the clients to pay. I think there's actually some studies that show that if you offer credit card payments, the clients actually pay faster. So I would say maybe if you have a larger contract, you might want to offer that option, even though you have to pay a fee. Usually the fee is, I can't remember the top of my head. It's not that bad, but depending on where you want to save, whether you want to save a little bit of money or you want to offer your clients a little bit more flexibility. Usually what I'll say is like internet bank transfers are preferred, but I will also accept checks and credit cards. And so far, actually, people have usually been picking internet bank transfers, so that's been working out for me. Okay, I think that's it for me in terms of questions. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming today and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.